Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty special. We are exploring a highly cinematic and entirely factual visual summary of the first 8 chapters of George Orwell's absolute classic, Animal Farm. We're going to track this chronological narrative together, watching step by step as a hopeful, idealistic uprising, gradually twists itself into a dark, authoritarian dystopia. Let's get right into it.
But before we start at the very beginning, I want you to take a look at this incredibly eerie image from our sources. Think of it as a cinematic cold open. Just look at that smug, whiskey-drinking pig. Keep this visual right in the back of your mind as we rewind the clock, because we're going to see exactly how things devolved to get to this specific point.
Section 1. The Spark of Rebellion.
So it all begins on Manor Farm. The animals are overworked, they're perpetually hungry, and they're suffering under the neglectful rule of Mr. Jones. But then a visionary dream literally changes everything. A prize-winning board named Old Major gathers everyone together to share this deeply radical philosophy. Just listen to his words. Man is the only creature that consumes without producing. All men are enemies. All animals are comrades. Boom! With that single speech, Old Major ignites the ideological spark of what they decide to call animalism. He even teaches them this unifying, uplifting anthem called Beasts of England. It paints this golden, beautiful future, totally free of human oppression. It's a genuine moment of total solidarity.
Section 2. A Taste of Freedom.
Now, Old Major actually passes away pretty shortly after that, but his message, it absolutely takes root. When the starving animals finally snap and oust Mr. Jones in this spontaneous, highly energetic uprising, they don't hold back. They fling the actual instruments of their oppression straight into a blazing rubbish fire. It's this deeply euphoric period. They proudly rename the property Animal Farm, and to cement their brand new utopian society, they distill animalism into these 7 commandments. They paint them in giant white letters right on the tarred barn wall for everyone to see. These rules are explicitly designed to stop the animals from ever adopting the evil habits of man. Look at that 7th rule down there. All animals are equal. Sounds beautiful, right?
But then you gotta wonder, what happened to the milk and apples? Right as the animals are celebrating their very first successful harvest, these super premium food items just mysteriously vanish. The tension really starts to build here. Pretty soon, Squealer, who is this highly persuasive pig that could basically convince you black is white, steps up. He reveals that the pigs have actually secretly claimed these items for their own mash. And his justification? He claims it's brain food. He says it's strictly necessary for their health to keep Jones from coming back. Just like that, the very first crack in their perfect equality has formed.
Section 3. The Struggle for Power.
So that initial unity we saw, it fractures incredibly quickly. The 2 most prominent pigs, Snowball and Napoleon, get locked in this bitter, bitter rivalry. On the left, you've got Snowball pushing a visionary plan, building a windmill to provide electricity, knocking labor down to a 3-day work week, and instituting widespread education. But on the right, Napoleon pushes a totally ruthless, pragmatic vision, increasing food production, procuring firearms, and, as we soon find out, raising a secret army of dogs. This clash of ideologies culminates in a genuinely terrifying scene. Literally, right as Snowball wins the crowd over with his grand windmill speech, Napoleon lets out this high-pitched whimper. Suddenly, 9 massive, privately raised attack dogs just bound into the barn and violently chase Snowball off the farm forever.
Section 4. Rewriting the Rules.
With Snowball completely out of the picture, Napoleon assumes absolute total leadership. He instantly abolishes the Democratic Sunday meetings, and shockingly, just a few weeks later, he announces the windmill is going to be built anyway, totally gaslighting everyone by claiming the idea was his all along. The animals are bewildered, but honestly, they have no voice anymore, and watch how their actual environment begins to lie to them. The pigs start adopting the exact human habits Old Major explicitly warned against, like moving into the farmhouse and sleeping in the beds. When Clover the horse remembers a specific rule against this, she goes to check the barn wall. But guess what? The original law has been secretly amended. It now reads, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets." Squealer uses his incredibly clever rhetoric to manipulate the animals, weaponizing the written word itself for absolute control.
Section 5. The Reign of Terror.
Things get incredibly dark here. The farm faces a bitter, brutal string of hardships. The animals are starving, working like literal slaves to build this windmill with thick stone walls. Look at the timeline. In fall, a massive storm completely levels the half-finished windmill. Instead of accepting it as a natural disaster, Napoleon uses Snowball as a paranoid scapegoat for literally every single failure. Moving into winter, widespread famine hits, which the pigs desperately try to hide from the outside human world by filling their grain bins with sand.
By spring, the hens realize their eggs are being sold off to humans, so they stage a rebellion. Napoleon crushes it ruthlessly by starving them out, resulting in 9 deaths. And by summer, we hit the Great Purges. This once idealistic revolution has descended into a severe, full-blown crisis of survival.
The terror absolutely peaks right here. Napoleon gathers all the terrified animals out in the yard and demands confessions. That whole illusion of a utopian brotherhood, it's completely shattered. 4 pigs who had once questioned Napoleon are dragged forward, and their throats are literally torn out by his dogs. The rebellious hens, slaughtered. A goose and a sheep are killed for absurdly minor offenses. A literal pile of corpses is left right at Napoleon's feet. For the very first time since Mr. Jones was kicked out, the air is heavy with the smell of blood.
Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, wasn't there a commandment against this? Yes, there was. But the pigs have figured out how to retroactively legalize their own atrocities. The terrified animals check the wall again, and wouldn't you know it, the original law now conveniently ends with the words, "without cause." Once again, the animals are forced to doubt their own memories and just accept that the horrific slaughter they just witnessed was legally justified.
To completely finalize his grip on their minds, Napoleon does something truly devastating. He takes away their hope. After the executions, the traumatized animals huddle together and begin slowly, mournfully singing Beasts of England. But Squealer pops up and announces the anthem is officially banned. He says Beasts of England was the song of the rebellion, that society has now been established. Clearly this song has no longer any purpose. By outlawing their song, the regime makes absolutely sure that terrified animals cannot even express a shared longing for a better world.
So how do the animals respond to all this madness? Well, look at Boxer. He's this enormous cart horse, the strongest, most dedicated, loyal worker on the entire farm. He looks at all this bloodshed and simply says, "I do not understand it. The solution, as I see it, is to work harder." It's heartbreaking, right? But it perfectly demonstrates the devastating reality of tyranny. It so often relies entirely on the blind obedience and misplaced dedication of the hardest workers. Which brings our whole narrative full circle, right back to our cold open. Look at this image one more time. The pigs have entirely isolated themselves inside the farmhouse. Napoleon never even appears in public without his deadly dog retinue and a trumpeter to announce him. He gives himself these ridiculous grand titles like Father of All Animals, eats off fine Crown Derby china, and literally uses the farm's money to buy himself a case of whiskey. The transformation into the exact humans they once despised is basically complete. We're going to end today's explainer with this really provocative, lingering thought. When the liberators systematically rewrite the laws to become the exact tyrants they originally overthrew, was it really a revolution, or was it just a change of management? I invite you to deeply consider this whole anatomy of power and corruption we just looked at. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning what's written on the wall.